Just like a wounded animal, men respond to distress with a fight or flight instinct. In this video podcast, you'll learn how these men, with the ringing in their ears and the debris of their shattered expectations still settling around them, react once they pick themselves up from the ground.
As men, when we face trouble, we often want to go and hide. We don't want other people to see it, and we face these troubles alone. In fact, I remember a story as a kid about a jungle parakeet that belonged to a man and became injured, and actually injured its foot, and said the vet did not realize it. No one realized it until one day later that parakeet actually died. And whenever the man went to talk to his vet about why it wasn't able to be seen, he said, animals hide by default. Whenever there's an injury or something that would cause us not to work at our full potential, we oftentimes hide that away, even to the point of our own detriment.
When I first got the diagnosis, we went into a state of numbness, and we did everything we could possibly do. We grappled, and those days were, it's hard to go back there because it's emotional. And we just like we were out in the deep sea, just trying to grab a lifeline. I would use that analogy, and maybe this thing will save our kid. Maybe baby A will save our kid. Maybe speech therapy, whatever. There's so many therapies, out there. But we were in the sea, and we felt like we were drowning.
My wife and I turned to each other, really, because we just didn't know. I mean, we didn't know what we didn't know. We were scared that, if we did this, it might hurt him. If we did this, it might acerbate, the brain injury. So we really were just almost in a cocoon.
I felt alone, even though my wife was there with me. My wife was scared and, fearful, and there wasn't really anything I could do for her. And as a man, that was not only is your fear, gut-wrenching, but the fact that you can't comfort your wife or, help her understand life is going to be okay was extremely humbling, but it was also extremely difficult.
I think most of us as husbands, we learn as we go. We didn't read the book on being a good husband. We just kind of, and then you get this layered in on top of it. And so I did feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do here. And that is a lonely feeling because you don't know what to do. I felt alone when, particularly as Serena was young and she had a lot of therapy, and my wife was running ragged, and I couldn't really support Laura the way she needed it.
I felt very alone. And during those times, I didn't really reach out to other men. And I didn't have a lot of men that tried to reach out to me either. And so it was challenging. I really didn't honestly go to God, although I have a strong faith in God. I just ran away from it. As a guy, I ran away. And I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to go to those tough places.
Oftentimes as men, we want to fight battles on our own, and it's even maybe seen as weakness that we don't reach out to someone else. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, it talks about a three-stranded cord is not easily broken. And so if you can remember that if you take yourself, add in someone else to fight with, and add in God, those three strands together are stronger than each of those strands on their own. And oftentimes you may be the cord that needs to reach out to someone else in trouble.
When it comes to grief, I pushed it down. I pushed it inside of myself. But a lot of what I did was probably denial. So I escaped into, this just isn't happening. I can't, she looks fine. Everything's going to be fine.
Well, grief for me I think, was as you described. It comes in small segments where you see your 16-year-olds are going to get their license. Well, she's not going to get her license, right? So you grieve a little bit there. You think about them graduating from college, all these milestones, right? That your child either won't do, or it will be different for them. In some way, you'll always have this different experience because that child is different. But yeah, I think the grief, for me anyway, was always in little segments, particularly on my life milestones. So
it's one thing to go through something for a short period of time. It's another thing to go through it every day and know that it's not going away.
I still experience grief. Noah was at the kitchen sink one day, and I was behind him, and I was just talking to him. So, hey, Noah, we gonna go driving today? You want to go? Just he's 16, he's now 17, but at the time I was talking to him, he was 16. Could have been getting his permit. Could have taken him out driving like I did my other children. And so I was just talking with him. He didn't know I was talking to him, but I was just grieving that process of not being able to teach him how to drive. Where would you be going tonight? Would you be going on a date? Would you be going out, hanging out with some friends? Go be doing computer games? What would you be doing? What do you want to do tonight, Noah? And no response. And it was kind of a grieving moment.
I think I turned a lot of my grief into the work I did at the school at the time. My pouring out to other kids and just pouring myself into them was a medication for me. My grief was probably poured out in a positive way, but for maybe the wrong reasons, but it ended up being very positive for a lot of other kids. Yeah, it was an escape. I was selfish at that time, I think, a little bit, to escape some things at time. Yeah.
Work was my biggest form of self-medication. I knew I covered it up. I was just a heck of a poser. I just covered it up, saying, I know I have to work to pay for all these bills, to pay for all this debt. But it was just a form of escape. Working harder didn't make it better.
I think this is true for me, is that the grieving it's just, there's some great times, right? Happy and just so glad that God gave you this child. But then there's when you start doing the comparison game, that's what kind of gets you in trouble. And you start either grieving or being bitter.
All the time. I asked why all the time. And then it just went into how long? How long can I bear this day in and day out? These tantrums, these going through therapy sessions and like putting my kid through all this hell. It was overwhelming.
Every day I ask why. I'd ask my wife, I'd ask my other daughter, I'd ask anybody who would listen to me. I'd ask God, why did you do this? Why did you allow this to happen? Or, what did I do to deserve this to happen to us? You name it, I've asked it. I thought maybe I wasn't living my life correctly. I was being punished for some reason. And I think we look for a why for everything. And sometimes there isn't.
I ask why every day. I ask why him, why us, why this disease, why didn't our doctor know, why couldn't people help us, and I ask that question every day. I wonder every day what his life would be like if he didn't have autism, what our life would be like if he didn't have autism. Because you see children, at church and neighbors that have same age kids, and you say that's not fair. Why? And I asked why a lot of God, and I felt like He kind of abandoned me. Since then, I've realized that Hayden is a blessing to me. He is a blessing to my family. So my relationship with God has been strengthened tremendously, And I got that relationship back through Barren Heights.
Oh, yeah, many times. I would lie to you if I didn't ask why. Yeah, I mean, do you doubt and grapple? Have a conversation with God? Yeah, you do. I think most people can do that at times.
At some point, I think I just cried out to God and said, well, why me? Why do I have to have a special needs son? Why do I have to deal with this? And I think it's probably when I came to realization that it's my deal. I got to, there's not a quick solution, maybe no solution. So, why me? Why do I have to deal with this? And that was probably the moment. Oh, I blame God. That was easy. But yeah, I blame God, and that's an unfair blame. There's really, to blame anybody is unfair. Am I totally at a point where I think it's unfair? Probably not. I would like my life to be easier. And God told me one time, He just said, Rick, I am not going to heal your son to make your life easier. And I realized at that point, it was more about me that was really about him. It's about me wanting him to be healed so my life wouldn't be as challenging.
No other person could have spoken these words into my life at that time except for him. He said, Matt, maybe it's not Macy who needs changed. And that's powerful when you stop for a moment and think, that was the day that I realized that this isn't happening to me, it's happening to her. And somehow I made it about me.
God has helped me learn that life is not about me. And I think once I started realizing that life really isn't about Rick, it's about what Rick can do for others, it kind of turned around. I felt freer, if that makes sense.
As you can see, everyone deals with their own question in their own way. But at Barren Heights, we offer a community of men that can come together and help out in times of trouble, as well as dealing with grief, no matter how that looks like. Let us help you answer that question of why.
The why for me today is Macy has opened our lives up to people in different countries we would have never met. She's allowed us to be introduced to people in this country that we would have never, ever come across because of just her disability. So getting to know these people and their experiences has been something as well. I think my regret would have been that I didn't talk to somebody sooner about it. Because as with everything else, when you try to conceal something or push it back down, it eventually comes back out. And I think that probably surfaced in my marriage as far as my reaction with my wife.
The first time that we really opened ourselves up to someone helping us was Barren Heights. Those people just opened their arms and accepted us so much, and going to church in the barn was a defining moment. I'm never going to forget this. All 5 of us were in church together, and my wife reached over and held my hand, and that was it. So we decided that we would go back to church.
I believe I started coming to peace with all this autism thing when I recognized that I had a wound that I needed to go to and just give it to God.
The turning point was glorious. To get to that turning point wasn't so glorious. We'd taken Noah out one night. Noah and I were literally fighting in the back seat. And the next day, 2 days, whatever, I went down to my pond and I said, God, I just can't do this. I need help. And God he was there through the Holy Spirit, just downloaded 7 things. Do this. The very first thing he told me to do was to have empathy for my son. Empathy? What's empathy? Oh, he told me to understand, just strive to understand what's going on in your son's head. He said, do not get aggressive with Noah for any reason. Okay. and I have to say that in my own power, there's something greater than me at the moment that has empowered me, the Holy Spirit, that has empowered me to do that. So that was really a turning point. To answer your question, that was really a turning point for me. But it was more than just me. It was just that heart cry to God to say, I'm done. I mean, I need your help. And boom, he was there. Have I been perfect since that time? No. But it's been a whole lot better. Noah has been a whole lot better knowing that if he comes at Dad, that Dad's not going to get re-aggressive or back with him.
In our next video, we'll be talking about the fog of war and how that uncertainty in battle causes different people to react in different ways. We'll hear from some more of our great men as they talk about how they each dealt with their own why question and the ways that they went through that struggle by themselves and with others.
But I was angry every day. And it's tough because you want to be angry at him, but you really can't. He can't control his actions. He can't control his behavior.
But as a guy, we just want to fix something. I just want to fix my son.
Yeah, I thought sometimes that was punished because of some of my sins.